So welcome back, folks. I'm Meg Kruger. Today we are joined by Shaun Eberhart. He is the head groundskeeper of Northeast Goose Lake Community Schools, and we're going to be talking lip management and maintenance on your baseball field. So Shaun, we met on first terms with our Field of Excellence program, and he had submitted his baseball field, which he I bet it would treat like a baby in a sense. It was beautiful, had all the details that you want working. So today we're just going to be talking lip maintenance and management. And Shaun, I'll let you take it away. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your field and your facility.
Yeah, so again, my name is Shaun Eberhart. I'm the head groundskeeper at Northeast Community Schools. I've been in this position for 8 years now. We have 5 acres of competition fields, with some of those being a competitive baseball and softball field. Both of those were renovated in 2014. They're native based with Kentucky bluegrass, and they see a lot of activity early May, and then into mid-July. Each field sees about 70 practices and 70 games each. So maintenance is pretty intensive during that time. So excited to get the year rolling.
Definitely. And tell us a little bit about maybe the daily techniques, or whether that's on a weekly basis. What are the things that you're doing, in a cadence to keep up with the maintenance and management of the lip?
Yeah, so with so many games and practices, it's not unlikely to see 2 or 3 practices in a day, followed by a game at night. So it's really crucial for us to stay on top of that each day. So kind of the schedule that we do is we'll take a leaf blower, a rake, a power broom, even just a push broom, and we try to do that after each set of events for that day. We try to get it done before the irrigation cycle runs, so that material doesn't really harden and become more of a nuisance to get out. So it's really a daily task when we talk about in season. Then when we go out of season, we still are aware of those things. Wind, water, all those will like to move some of the soil. So it's not something that we just quit doing once the season ends. So pretty rigorous, something that we like to stay on top of, so then we're not doing big renovations to fix the problem.
Of course. And how do you balance, when you're in season, how do you balance making sure that the lip and the transition zone are aesthetically pleasing, while also making sure that it's safe and playable for the players?
Yeah, it's for us, a lot of people would see it as a minor detail, but for us, it impacts so many things. We want that surface runoff from the infield skin. Playability is a huge thing. We don't want bad hops, and then we don't want that soil material to kind of infiltrate its way into the profile of the grass. So being it's still a detail, it affects so many things. So it's right up there as top priority, and something, like I said, we're really proud of it. Our players know that, so they take a lot of pride in not afraid to help out keeping them clean. So it's one of the bigger things that our field's prided on.
And I can definitely say, before coming into this position, this is one of those things that I wouldn't even have looked for on a field. And I can almost bet that growing up, the fields I played on definitely didn't have that attention to detail. But where did you come up with these skills? Is this something through the job that it just became a priority, or is this something that you had a lot of focus on going into the career?
Well, actually, in high school, I'll never forget, I played a game and the lip was like 3 inches. And at that point, I was still, sports surf was on my radar. And that was one thing that really stuck out to me. And then just through education and then the internships, you see so many different methods of doing it, the frequency in which they do it. And you just kind of, for us, we have selected what works best for us. So we want to be quick with the process, but yet we want to be proficient with it too. We don't want to just be doing it to do it. So that attention to detail has just kind of grown with me ever since I first got into the industry.
And that's always really cool when, that perspective as a player is your first experience, because I'm sure a lot of people don't have that. And we know that, some of the kids playing out there, they don't understand what goes into it. But I love that your perspective started all the way back when you were playing on the fields.
Yep.
But you talked about method a little bit. So tell us like how edging plays a role into your routine maintenance. How frequent are you guys doing that, or what are the things you're looking for in if you have to edge?
Yeah, so we try to edge. You know, we get a good edge in right before the season, make sure everything's crisp, and then in season we try to do it once a week, at the least amount every week and a half. It's just honestly our biggest issue is just finding 4 or 5 hours to be able to get out there and do it. And then when we're out of season, we try to do it every 2 to 3 weeks. It's one of those things where, again, if we can stay on top of it, that makes less work for us in the spring. And then far as that process goes, that's kind of when we'll either add material or pull material back from the skin to make sure we're flush. So, we do that routine cleaning, the daily maintenance of keeping the dirt out. But when we edge, that's when we kind of see if we need to add some or just pull back from the infield itself. So you don't want to just be add material on top of material, because then you will form a lip in itself. So that's when we kind of do some of the finer details.
So that's really when you're looking to reshape the arc if it's needed at that time.
Yep.
And does hosing or watering the lip in any sense go hand in hand with your edging practices, or is that something you do separately?
No, it goes hand in hand. So we'll before we edge, we like to clean it out with a hose. That to me has been one of the most effective methods for us. We do have to be a little cautious. We don't want to be just jetting down water and exposing the crown of the plants and things of that nature. But just to get a good washout, hosing will go right before we edge. Here in Iowa, the winters are windy. And if there's no snow cover, usually the material's blowing around. So when we blow those out with waters, it's amazing how much material we can get back into the infield surface from the grass.
And to kind of go further with that, what techniques are you using on the infield in the transitions there that may be different than the warning track transitions?
Yeah, so I will admit, the cleaning out process, we're a lot more diligent about that on the infield. That's mainly because I don't have, usually it's just me, and if I do have staff, we still don't have enough to cover to be able to clean out warning track edges. So when we do warning track edges, we do edge those with our infield edges. But as far as pulling material to make sure they're flush, that's something we do before the season, and then we try to do it once in the middle of the season. A lot of that material likes to migrate towards our fences as water sheds off the field. So we'll just take a bunker rake or a hand rake and pull that back to the warning track edge. But maintenance wise, we're not as diligent, but that's mainly just for labor reasons.
Yeah, I forgot that you operate as a one-man band most of the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
So when you say we, you really mean me.
Me, yeah. If I can get someone that wants to grab a rake and help on, I'm all for it. But usually that doesn't always happen.
Of course. And when you're, dragging, or if you do have someone else help you out on the field, what are some of the things that you're doing to kind of minimize, material getting into those transition zones?
First thing that I always tell them is speed. We don't want to be going too fast to be throwing the material outwards, kind of that inertia thing where you're just throwing material to the side and thus into the edges. So speed's the big one. So they're going at a slow pace. The other one, I like to keep them about 6 feet or 6 inches, pardon me, from the edge. A lot of times it just takes hand raking to get that material flush with the edge. And so we try to keep away from the edge when we're dragging. And then the biggest thing, we have Shakopee lime. So I like to add a little moisture to that just so we're not, again, throwing around dust, powder. When it breaks down, we can throw a little bit of moisture in there so there's a greater consistency and we're getting a smooth drag instead of just throwing the material to the outside.
Perfect. All good stuff. So what other turf tips can you offer others? Maybe some aha moments that you've come across throughout your process with this, or anything that I really didn't touch on?
Oh, like I said, the big thing for me is just staying on top of it. I always get weird looks when I'm out there edging the field and it's, the middle of September or early October and we haven't had a game in 2 months. So you get weird looks, but it's staying on top of that maintenance, understanding that that material can still get into the edges even without players on there. So staying on top of that so that when we go out in the spring, give it a good flush with the hose. We shouldn't have any lip buildup. And then I think the other thing, I learned this from Larry DeVito with the Twins, is I like to put my feet, half my foot on the turf, the other half on the dirt, and close my eyes, and I should feel a flat surface. If there's a difference between the two, either add material or clean out the lips. So a little tip that I learned from someone who's been doing this very well.
That's awesome. And again, I love the representation you've got with the hat there. Very on brand. And we appreciate your time again. I really, I know you guys are going to be in full swing here any minute. So we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this.
Thank you, Meg.